Shareefah, how are you today?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for speaking with me. Happy Women's History Month. I just want to give you
Thank
a shout
you.
out. All of you want to give you all your flowers, all of the women educators out there. And you have a special and unique role when it comes to education. You're an award-winning teacher, local, state, and national, almost international. You have done it all over these last few years. But 2 years ago, when the pandemic started, where were you? What happened? And where have you progressed since then? Because I know a lot has happened in the education community, especially for yourself.
When the pandemic started, I was teaching at New Tech High School, which is one of Dallas Independent School District's only choice schools in the 75216 zip code, which is one of Dallas's most impoverished areas. And so our students have to apply and interview to enter the school. It's a project-based learning school. So it was just this amazing fusion of learning and projects, presentations, really allowing our students who are predominantly Black and Brown the opportunity to learn those critical 21st century skills that they would need to become successful in society. And so I was there. We were getting ready to graduate our seniors. We were excited. We were planning trips and activities. And then school shut down, and we were told to place some assignments, in our virtual realm so that students would be able to complete their work without missing a beat, and we should be back in 2 weeks. We thought we would have an extended spring break, which turned into a very much extended spring break, right? And so that group of students was our first students to graduate virtually.
Wow.
Which was crazy, watching slides go across the screen instead of students walking across the stage. And for me, as I sat and I watched the numbers of Black and Brown people that were dying so rapidly because of COVID-19, and because of the fact that we don't have the health systems in place in our communities, I wrote an article that was published in the Dallas Morning News about not forgetting the teachers, and that we had been on the front line of this pandemic long before it had a name, right? We all have these stories about January and February when students and teachers had this cough that nobody knew about, that they couldn't get rid of. We were sending students home. They had these symptoms. We didn't know what it was. And we were there without masks, without Lysol, without microban, without gloves. We were in these spaces teaching students when, unbeknownst to us, there was a silent killer amongst us in the form of coronavirus.
Teachers were on the front lines before there was a front line.
Absolutely. And that was my purpose in saying, and then of course, there's no disrespect to our healthcare workers. They are amazing, and they did a phenomenal job navigating in a space that was completely unprecedented for all of us that are alive today. However, we were there when it was nameless, when no one knew what was happening or what was going on. We were the people sending students to the nurse. We were the people sending students, calling parents and saying that the student has been coughing uncontrollably. We just had no idea what we were really up against.
So how does a global health crisis, where you believe that it's just going to be an extended spring break, you're going to have to take a intermission, if you will, halftime, a pause, how does that turn into you becoming an education advocate in the Dallas Morning News, at South by Southwest, EDU? Where did that transformation come from in 2020?
So it was something that I had already been building. I've self-published 4 books on education, started writing in 2010 because I felt like I'm in this urban area and everybody keeps bringing in white people from these spaces that don't interact like mine to try to tell me how to be successful with my students. And I thought to myself, I should be presenting to people and providing professional development on the work I've done, because not only am I a teacher, in this space, but I was also a student in the space because I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. And so for me, I felt like there was an opportunity to carve out a space for myself and people like me to really tell the story of what it looks like to move marginalized students, because it's absolutely possible. And so in 2020, I just sat back and I was like, I am going to go a little bit deeper in my writing. I'm a part of Teach Plus, which is a national policy advocacy group for teachers. And I was a part of their amazing national report, If You Listen, We Will Stay, which was about teachers of color, how we recruit and retain them. And I thought that my work was done. I was like, this is great work. And then the pandemic hit, and we're talking about the health pandemic, but we also have to touch on the racial pandemic that was also exposed and unearthed right before our eyes. And that led me to write George Floyd is proof that America needs more Black teachers. And I felt like in that moment, I had to step outside of the of color box. I like the box, it's nice, but I needed to be able to speak about Black teachers and our experiences and why we are so important in this space and why we need to be authentically embraced. And from that, during the pandemic, I kept talking to Dr. Mark Teal, who is the national research person at Teach Plus. And I was like, I want to write a paper specifically about Black teachers. And so Mark put in a call to Shareefah Mason from the Center for Black Educator Development. We got our teams together and we cranked out to be who we are, Black teachers on creating culturally affirming schools. And Teach Plus has just empowered me to be able to lead these focus groups, to get this data, and then to connect me with people like Dr. El Mekki, who can really take this work to another level. So I don't know if you remember, but there were several memes going around during the time of the pandemic that specifically stated, if you're not working, if you're not creating a business, if you're not expanding yourself during this time, you're doing yourself a disservice. And I was not going to do myself or my students or the students of the nation a disservice. So I decided I needed to start writing, and I needed to start boldly writing and unapologetically writing about what the needs were of our students.
So a lot of your work within the needs of our students talks about teacher diversity, especially with Teach Plus. And we talk about addressing the growing need for educational leaders and putting more of a diverse representation of the classroom nowadays when we talk about educators and the adults who are molding the next generation of our children. You tweeted recently about teacher diversity. Teacher diversity, it doesn't mean the deletion of white teachers, it's the deletion of disproportionality. What does that mean to you, and how can we diversify the teaching workforce, in your opinion?
So to me, again, I'm in this space where I'm being very unapologetic. And I want people to understand that I have had amazing white teachers in my schooling and amazing white teacher colleagues. So I am very committed to pursuing diversity. But we all need to understand that if a workforce is 80% white female, and the students that are sitting in the classroom are more than 50% Black and brown, then we have to get rid of that disproportionality. We are not saying that white teachers don't have value. They absolutely do, especially the white teachers that are part of being co-conspirators in disrupting these racial systems that stifle our teachers and students, right? We don't want to delete anybody, but we have to create a space for ourselves so that our students get what they need. Our students need teachers who not only look like them, because the experiences of Black and brown people are not monolithic, but they need to have people who understand their lived experiences and can ensure that they can uplift them and help them navigate in spaces that breed trauma and continue to prevent them from success. So that tweet was super important to me because I think people believe that diversification means the erasure of white teachers, and that is not what we're selling. What we're saying is that we have to make sure that there is some equitable creation of systems and departments that are dedicated to making sure our students can see themselves. Because I always say you can't be what you can't see. And so if I don't see someone looking like me, to what do I have to aspire?
You can't be what you can't see. Such an amazing quote when we talk about young people and what they can do down the line. They can do anything, but oftentimes they see the rappers, the athletes, and some of the other professionals that are highlighted in the mainstream media, and they don't see the teachers and the people on the front lines and the doctors and the nurses and those professions who are doing so much for us as well. Um, but my question to you is, what are some of the numbers and evidence that supports we need more Black teachers in order to grow our young students?
First of all, Black students that have a Black teacher in elementary, one Black teacher, are 13% more likely to go to college. That number more than doubles to 32% if they have two Black teachers.
Amazing.
We have to look at that. We have to look at that, because if we can just get them to college, we can get them through college. The issue is that we're not able to get them to college. And if we don't increase those numbers, then we continue to be a part of this system, this perpetuation of the fact that Black students can't learn. They are destined to become a part of this vicious crime system in our country. And that's far from the truth if we take the time on the front end to put the teachers in place that we need. We know that the system only has 2% Black males teaching, right? The issue with that is it deflates tremendously when you are looking at just the Black males that are teaching in core content areas. So when you're looking at 1.5% of Black males in a school, and a little Black boy is going to school and having some type of issues with trauma, he may be having some type of issues with just learning academic wise, and we don't have someone who looks like him that can help him through those struggles, who understands his lived experiences and his situations, then we are failing him. And we have failed so many Black students, all because we refuse to say that 80% of the teacher force is white female, and that is not proportionate.
It's not. And I want to thank you because you're doing an amazing job by sharing your story and sharing, the evidence that the research that supports we need more Black teachers on all platforms. On Twitter recently, you did an amazing campaign that inspired me. Hashtag Hey Black Teachers. Where did that come from? And can you tell us a little bit about that challenge?
Thank you so much. I was hoping it would go viral. It didn't go viral, but maybe next year.
You had some of Abbott Elementary's cast retweeting you. It went
Cheryl
viral.
Lee,
Surely
the
did.
great Cheryl Lee Ralph retweeted, and Lisa Ann Walter, who plays Miss Minty on Abbott Elementary, actually participated and retweeted. So that in itself was just it. You could have just
shut it down right there.
I was done. I was done. I was like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe this is happening. But with all of that, there was this white school board member in Cypress Fairbanks ISD, which is a suburb of Houston ISD. And in all of his audacity and aloofness, he had there was the school board meeting, and he was speaking, and he was talking about the fact that Houston ISD had a high dropout rate. And he had the nerve to equate that to the number of Black teachers in the district. Now, we are living in an era where anybody can say anything they want without data and without proof or evidence.
You know it.
He has no way of correlating that the number of the high percentage of Black teachers that are working in Houston ISD equate to the high percentage of the dropout rate in Houston ISD. But he said it because he could. And that is what made me create the Hey Black Teacher campaign, because I thought to myself, somebody has to stand up and say, no, we are worthy. Right. We are excellent. We are amazing. I have buried more than 20 students in a 15-year career. Everybody can't do that. Everybody can't walk into a school and love on their students and embrace their students and help them navigate those kinds of traumas. Give them advice, console them when they need it. So I'm not going to let anybody spit on Black teachers and act as if we are not integral in this component of education and ensuring that students learn. There's an NPR report that was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that shows that all students learn best from teachers of color.
Wow.
So this is not just about Black and brown students, white students that experience effective, amazing Black teachers enjoy that experience as well. And so we have to make sure that we are getting out and amplifying that, because oftentimes they will box us up and say that we're only good for Black and brown children. That's not the case. White students love the diversity of Black teachers, the lived experiences of Black teachers, because we are able to expose them to a world that they're not familiar. And when you're able to give them that diversity, they're able to go into the world and navigate, become embracing and more inclusive, more diversified in their speak. And then they become allies and co-conspirators in deconstructing this narrative and this racial systemic infrastructure that has long plagued our country.
I want to thank you for bringing the numbers, for fact checking, for calling everybody out and saying, hey, Black teachers, we are here, we are worthy, we are excellent. I love how you said that, and you brought it to a national campaign, and it did go viral. So thank you so much for all of your advocacy and all of the work that you do, especially recruiting, retaining, and reinvigorating the teaching workforce with Black teachers. As always, my special guest, a distinguished teacher, an award-winning teacher, Dallas College's Associate Dean of Educator Certification. Thank you so much. Women's History Month, an amazing educator in Dallas, Texas. Is there anything else that you would like to leave us with?
I just want to say that we have to remember that the idea of critical race theory did not come to be until we started pushing culturally responsive teaching. So there is an intentional ploy to remove the idea of executing culturally responsive teaching to the level it should be by replacing it with a negative connotation. We cannot let these systems be replaced. We have to make sure that everybody in our schools are culturally intelligent, culturally responsible, and culturally responsive so that our students can be their very best. We have to stop letting people pretend that this system has not been based on race the entire time. And I want to mention that the College Board is now talking about the fact that they are calling the teaching of history the right way, truthful history. And that's a big deal to me, because when we take away the ability to teach history in its authentic form, we also take away the opportunity to highlight white abolitionists like William Lloyd Garrison or Angelina Grimke. We have people that were white that were a part of the fight and struggle since slavery. And when we can't teach what really happened, we can't showcase all of the goodness that also came from people who did not look like us as well. And so I want to continue to empower people in classrooms, especially our social studies teachers, to teach truthful history.
Thank you, Shareefah. I want to thank you again for being the best in education and recruiting and retaining our teachers and our young students and being such a positive role model for them. So happy Women's History Month again to you.
Thank you.
On the show.
Thank you so much.